Hey folks, Joe Baker here with the Edit Bay. In my last tutorial I went over setting up your camera to shoot log footage to expand the dynamic range of your camera. Today we're going to take a look at how to work with log footage and reap the benefits of shooting with a flat picture profile. Alright, I have here some footage from a short film that I've been working on called Catalyst, and I'm going to be teaching you guys some basic color correction techniques. And color correction / color grading is more or less broken up into two steps. You're going to have your primary color correction and your secondary color correction. You have your color corrections, which are more of a technical execution to make sure that the exposure levels are correct and your contrast levels are correct. When you get into color and colorizing your video for style and to set the mood and the tone of your film, that's what we refer to as color grading. So I'm going to go ahead and apply a color correction app to this footage. So I have it selected right here. Let me just go ahead and open this up. This is the fully graded shot, but I'm going to go ahead and open it up and turn all of these effects off so you can kind of see what I did here. Let me just delete these. So what we can do is take a look at our RGB parade over here. As you can see, all of the trace is really low, which is what we wanted. This is why we shot in log to begin with, to give us all of this room to bring this back up. Now, if you're a photographer and you're new to video editing or color grading, the RGB parade is going to give you an idea of where your contrast levels are, your exposure levels are. And it's broken up into 3 channels, red, green, blue. Down here on the bottom, 0 is pure black. So if I were to say lower the exposure, this is going to come down to 0 and everything would eventually become pitch black. Conversely, if I get anything above 1 is when things are going to start to clip. That's pure white up there at 1. So the idea with this is we're going to try to get our exposure levels where we're getting close to 0 but not actually crushing our blacks. We're going to get close to 1 without actually blowing out our highlights. And this is kind of the order that you want to do things in. We're going to adjust exposure and contrast before we get into color. So I'm going to go ahead and crank this up just a little bit. Whoops. Yeah, somewhere around there looks pretty good for right now. Toggle the effect on and off to see the difference that it's making. Yeah, a very, very important step before we get going with this is this is noisy footage, and I did run denoising app before opening up my color grading app right here. But the next tool I'm going to throw in here is a 3-way color corrector, and I'm going to have that occur after the exposure. And using these knobs over here, we can actually bring our shadows down a little bit. Again, we're just working on exposure and contrast at this point to get rid of that flat image. I'm going to leave a little bit of room right there. As we start to add effects, we'll probably end up dropping those shadows a little bit more. Now we'll raise the highlights and then raise the exposure of the mid-tones a little bit. Yeah, we don't want to get too crazy and raise this way up here, but somewhere in the middle should look pretty good for exposure. Okay, we're in pretty good shape right there with our initial pass of color correction. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And you should get a live update right in here. You can toggle the effect on and off here in your timeline. Before you get going with any primary color correction, it's a good thing to do this and to lay out your project. You've got all of your cuts made. If you come up here to sequence and sequence settings, you're going to want to make sure that this maximum bit depth is checked before you get into your color correction and color grading. By default, by the way, it's off. But what this will do is allow your system to take advantage of the 32-bit nature of some of the effects that are built into Premiere, as well as some of the effects that you might get with third-party plugins, such as all of these color apps right here. So if you do nothing else, it's going to be a huge, huge benefit to you. It's also worth noting that one of the main primary corrections that you will probably find yourself having to make is removing color casts from your footage. We lucked out and didn't have any of that, which you can also avoid by properly white balancing your camera when you're on set. But it's not uncommon at all to have a blue or an orange color cast on your footage that will have to be removed as part of your primary set of adjustments. Coming up, I'm going to be working on color grading this footage. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about the story and how that's going to influence my decisions as far as color grading techniques are concerned. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can be notified when I release that video. Thanks for your time.